A grain of sand, the prayer experience that is presented in this video is truly one of the favorites of those who've walked with HeartWork with me. It combines an active meditation with truly a absorbing or embracing in a new way of some very essential foundations of the spiritual life. First, approach your inner and outer life with serenity. We learn drama, a way of responding to what happens with us that is truly dramatic and so often painful to ourselves. This prayer exercise helps us to relearn serenity, the ability not to act out of the impulsive, unredeemed thoughts and feelings that are assaulting us as a result of a situation. Second, when we in anger try to push away these feelings we don't like or to change them, we get caught in the grip of the way we see things. We begin to see things in rigid ways, and it becomes very difficult for us to play with options and to see opportunities and to look at things from different perspectives. Third, this is a meditation on a grain of sand. One grain of sand, nothing too grand here. The path to transformation is one of humility, to settle in yourself just as you are, without needing to change it, because our capacities and limits do not determine who we are. So, what is this endless drama that's part of our lives really all about? Is it in some way protecting us or covering up a hole in our own souls? The key to development is equanimity, serenity, and emotional and mental evenness, to approach everything without reacting to it, without clinging to it, or trying to push it away, not longing for things to be different. Developing an attitude of surrender and openness to what is occurring within us without resisting it. And paradoxically, by immersing ourselves in the full texture of an experience without reacting to it, we begin to disidentify from the powerful feelings and the drama that can be so painful in our lives. A grain of sand. You'll need a paper and pen to do this exercise. Take a situation that is bugging you, something not too traumatic, but an everyday situation that kind of ticks you off, or something that you don't quite understand why you always react the way you do when it happens. And within that situation, pick one event that really happened, one event that demonstrates that situation for you. And for the purposes of this exercise, focus just on that event. It could be you choose just one person that the situation involves, or one encounter with that person involved in that situation. And when you have chosen that situation, that focus, I want you to stop and think, what am I thinking? What's the thought or the assumption or the belief that I have regarding that person or the group? Because what's disturbing me is, yes, their behavior, but it's also always connected to a thought or belief that I have about them. And can I nail that thought down? The example here would be, Anne shouldn't dump her work on me. So maybe Anne is dumping her work on me, I feel. But my belief is she should not dump her work on me. So I want you to allow yourself to really fully feel what you experience in the midst of this situation with regard to that one person. And I want you to be as completely emotionally honest about what you really think should happen, and to write that down as if there was no guards, there would be no consequences, and just write exactly what you wish would happen to that person, and just write it all down. Because if we don't connect again with what we really feel, we'll never be able to work through it to find God. So be real. What's there? And another way of looking at this is answering these questions. It would make me really happy if the person involved would begin to do what? If they started to do something that would really make you happy, what would that one thing be? And it would make me really happy if this person would stop doing what? Because many times we when there's a little difficulty, we can come out with these very vague statements, you shouldn't XYZ, but we never really completely and clearly state, I would appreciate it if you would stop slamming the door, for instance. Or I would appreciate it if you would hold the door when you come through, instead of, you are just so careless. So what would be that one thing that they could do that would make you happy? And then if you could get away with it, what would you really say to this person? Right up in front of their face, if you could say whatever you felt about them, what would you say? You are what? Write that down. When you look back at what you've now written down, what do you notice? What do you notice within yourself? What do you notice about any shifts in your heart, in your self-realization? Are you aware of certain responses that you've had that now look a little different to you? Asking Jesus to be with you now, write down the things that you notice. Now choose one of the things you would tell the person involved in that situation. Just choose one and imagine yourself going right up in front of them and speaking those words right to their face. And observe your own heart as you picture yourself doing this. What do you notice within yourself as those words come out of your mouth and you picture the response within the other person? And just notice if there's any other subtle shifts within you that are occurring. And write these down. Looking back over everything you've written down, what are you beginning to see? What's standing out for you, even if it's just one thing? In what way, perhaps, is your certainty about what was really going on kind of giving way to a softness or to an uncertainty or a movement of mercy or of understanding? Identify your expectations of the other person. Really, not just what you want them to do, but what are your expectations? For example, in the slamming of the door example, my expectations might just be that no one should make noise when I'm in the office, and I'm entitled to perfect silence. What are your expectations, bottom line? And really, can you live up to those yourself? Sometimes we're asking of others things that we're not willing to do ourselves. Can you even do it yourself? And when you look at that bottom line expectation, do the expectations really make sense? Imagine a grain of sand on a beach. Just one small little grain of sand on the immensity of a beach. That sand has no possessions. It's not rooted anywhere. That little grain of sand can be moved around by the tide, by the waves washing on the shore, moving through the ocean even to another continent. It's a grain of sand. It has no power, no place, no position, no goal. It's just there. It has meaning in itself, but it seems so small. There, underneath the sun, the beautiful blue sky, washed by the water, just one grain of sand among millions of grains of sand on the seashores of the world. Imagine just the freedom of that grain of sand, washed by wind and wave, moving as it is, with no control, no purposeful self-story, allowing itself to be given over, as it were, to the wind and the wave. Imagine you within yourself. What would it be like to be this grain of sand, so freely washed and moved, sunburnt, alone amongst many, many millions of grains of sand, not standing out, not different, not making a stand, but just a grain of sand. Imagine what it would be like to be as free as this grain of sand, moved by wave and water, moved by the power of another, moved by the powers of God, of grace, the infinite mystery of life and of the world. Nothing to preserve, just to be. just sink into that inner space of just being this grain of sand. As you're entering and staying in this inner space of freedom, of poverty, and a beauty, allow that event that you brought to this exercise to come into your mind and hold together that freedom, that beauty, that spaciousness, along with the actual situation that you're reflecting on. Allow the inner beauty and spaciousness and freedom and the handing over and trust to be the feelings that begin to take over and be connected to that event, so that you still can see what happened, but what you feel is the memory of that open sky, that immense seashore, and the simplicity of a single grain of sand created by God, held by God, known by God. Just hold the two together. And notice what you observe within yourself. If you were to drop your expectations or demands that you're making of the other person, really demanding that they do this or that to be acceptable or lovable, what would that look like if you dropped those demands? And what would be different for you? And if you were to drop the demands you are making of yourself to be acceptable or lovable to yourself, what would this look like? And what would be different for you? Ultimately, we can only change ourselves. We can only experience a shift in how we are in a situation. And that shift, as it happens in us, gradually maybe, but over time, truly, is what will change the situation in its entirety. And it takes strong images, big images like this ocean and the tiny grain of sand that can help us to experience that shift in our everyday life. And so going back to the situation and to your experience of this grain of sand, ask Jesus to show you what he feels about this grain of sand, which you are. Does he scoop it up in his hands? Does he move it someplace else? Does he wash it with the ocean water? What does Jesus feel about the grain of sand which you are? Because a grain of sand more closely approximates your inner true self, that inner soul, that inner I, that spiritual reality, than your reactions to situations. And so by working through our reactions, we can come to that beautiful place where we discover who we are, seen, held, loved, cherished by God. And then as we go back into the situation, gradually we find we are new, the situation is new, and others, because of us, have the freedom to grow and change.